So today is Saturday, March 21st, 2015. It is a Saturday afternoon. I just wanted to reach out with a short message for our board of directors. It's been an interesting last couple of days trying to get things going down the right path, and we're going to continue to do that. I've already sent out a message to our general staff about our bylaws and how apparently I had miscommunicated some information to them in regards to when we needed them, why we needed them, and all that stuff. I've had an opportunity to talk with John Weatherby and some of the other board members in regards to that, and everybody's in agreement at this point. Primarily, it was a lack of communications and or recognition during board meetings and or meetings. So that's something that we're definitely going to continue to work on, and something that I take full responsibility on. The only thing that matters at this point moving forward is that we are on the right track. So the board of directors has a copy of the bylaws that you guys can start looking through and approving from the department. John made some recommendations 2 months ago. I trust the whole concept there, and I don't have any problems with any of the content. There's nothing in there that was changed, altered, or amended that's going to hurt us as a department moving forward. And quite frankly, I don't know why we would even go down the road. We want to put something in our bylaws that's going to restrict us from a local governing body, whether it be from the board of directors to the general staff or vice versa, because it's all us. It represents all of us, not just the chief, not just the individual members, not just the board of directors. So I apologize for the inconvenience on that, and I wanted to also reach out and explain some background in regards to our bylaws and board of directors, something that I had an opportunity to meet with Rick Bruce about, and he apparently had no idea. Well, I wouldn't say that, but it was unbeknownst to him. Now, this is something the department already knows, and why this process moving forward is going to be a little bit more time consuming than just looking at a document and saying, okay, we need to change that because that don't look good. I don't like the way that looks or sounds, or what type of effect that's going to have on me as an individual, or what type of effect that's going to have on us as a corporation, i.e. a business. So real quick, let me, you know how I am with real quick. What we're going to do is, my instructions to our staff was, when it was assigned to them, was to start from the beginning. Start from the beginning of us as a business, documentarily wise, so we can start getting all that and compiling all that stuff together. In the Commonwealth of Kentucky, as you're very much aware, before we can be recognized as a business and be able to legally conduct business matters, have board of directors meetings, and all that stuff. I think over the years, people have, let me rephrase it, some of our board members have been, I would say, misinformed or misled, or that they're just not aware of truly how we as a business or a corporation is laid out. I think people might have the impression that because our name in itself says Warren County Rescue, that we are a local government agency, and we're not. Warren County Rescue is not a local government agency. It's not a gray area if you really follow the information back to the beginning. We are tied in locally to local government, just like, let's say, the animal rescue center. I'm having a brain freeze. Yeah, the animal place, Humane Society. Thank you. So the Humane Society, we are entitled to everything you would if you was the Humane Society. Yeah, they're tied into local government as much as we are. They get what we consider grant funds. Their primary funding base is not just local grants, as ours isn't just local grants. When I say grants, funded from tax base. So with that being said, I'm going to explain how it's laid out, and I'm going to be as quickly as I can with it. Some of you guys, I'm sure, already know some of this. Some of you might even know most of it. But I just wanted to get it out there for everybody. So if you go to the Kentucky, if you Google search Kentucky State, Kentucky Secretary of State, you're going to come to her main page. When you click on that main page, you're going to click on a search businesses. When you click on that search businesses, we're going to type in Warren County Rescue. We can type that name in and it'll pull up us because let me put the Y there. 2 years ago or so, or a year or whatever ago, we amended what we call our Articles of Incorporation. When we did that amendment, we said we wanted to, the name that we were currently using officially, we wanted to also add an assumed name, so we can use that Warren County Rescue or Warren County Rescue Department, because our real name was Bowling Green Warren County Rescue and Emergency Squad. It just didn't look all that much professional in this day and age. So when this comes up, when this screen comes up, you're going to see in our assumed name, the status, we are currently active, the last file date, the expiration date. I believe this is going to be for the assumed name. But it pulls up all of our corporate documents, and for the most part, the only thing that you're going to see on here, as you see, is an annual report. Basically, the annual report consists of who's on your board of directors, did your registered agent change, meaning the person that's responsible for documents and general coordination to and from your corporation and the Kentucky Secretary of State, and or amendments. And what you'll see is, from the time that we actually introduced our Articles of Incorporation was in 1979. That is when we officially was recognized by the state of us actually coming together. That is not the accurate date that we were actually formed. It was just the actual date that we, as a group of individuals, said that we need to get our business affairs right, etc. About that time frame, just so you know, I've done the research and I've pulled everybody's Articles of Incorporation for all the local departments and so forth, and I don't like when it does that. About that time, everybody was doing it. The oldest Articles of Incorporation that has been filed between us as a department and the 9 county fire departments was Woodburn. So Woodburn actually got their Articles of Incorporation in 8/24 of 1962. At that time, they started with 5 board members. Since then, they've amended their Articles of Incorporation to today, which includes 7 board members. When you click on our Articles of Incorporation, this comes up. And then there's a page. We're going to go back, and we're actually underneath my head here. You'll see there's a PFD tab. We're going to pull that up. Now, this is actually our certificate of nonprofit corporation. This is the thing that says we can do business. We've got it. It's here at the office, and we are acting. It's active, and we're in good standings. If you scroll down, the Articles of Incorporation is basically our document that we have to follow in order for us to maintain our ability to keep our charter. This is basically our charter, and by completing this, or by following this, it also lays out the ground rules. These rules will and must be followed unless there is an amendment, and then we follow those. Probably most of the people on the board, with the exception of the select few, have not even read these. So what the first chapter that it says, we as the undersigning have this day voluntarily associate ourselves together for the purpose of forming a non-stock, non-profit corporation under KRS, well, it says under Chapter 273, Kentucky Revised Statute. Now, that's going to be relevant because we're going to come back to that. So basically what it says, we're going to be a business, and the rules of engagement, if you will, that we're going to follow is KRS 273. Then it comes down, it talks about what our official name is. It says the Bowling Green Warren County Rescue and Emergency Squad Incorporated, which we've had an amendment to that, which we'll get into in a little bit. It tells us what the purpose is, the health, all that stuff. It tells us where the address of the registered agent is. The number of original directors shall be 3, and the names and addresses of those 3. So these are the 3 individuals that said, you know what, we want to be a business, and let's go ahead and file the paperwork. These are what I would consider the founding members legally of this corporation, or us as a business. And it also says under Article 5, the number of directors to be elected at the first meeting of the shareholders is 3. That shareholders, that name right there, just so you guys know, is we actually changed the wording on that because we don't have shares. We have what's called members because we're a nonprofit. So you can think in your head that the number of directors to be elected at the first meeting of the members is 3. So we start with 3, which is the 3 names: James Birch, Denzel Gray, the other gentleman, and then we, at the first annual meeting, we elect 3 more. That consists of 6 board members. Moving down, corporation is not organized for primarily or for profit, nor shall have any powers to issue certificates of stocks, blah, 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 same old stuff. Most people associate these type of documents with just that blah, blah, blah. Oh, that's nothing. You know, we're going to kind of do this, but these are very important. The corporation was formed, hereby shall have no capital stock. Yeah, that's relevant. Articles, who are the members. Okay, that's nothing big. The bylaws may be adopted or amended by a majority of the members of the corporation or as otherwise provided in the bylaws of the corporation. So that's, I mean, you can kind of read it as much as I can. Membership in the corporation may be terminated in the manner provided in the bylaws of the corporation unless otherwise provided in the bylaws. All rights of a member in the corporation shall cease on termination of his membership. Members of the corporation shall not be personally liable for any debt obligations solely by reason of being members. And basically, that's pretty much it. The articles of this corporation may be changed by either written consent of a majority of its members or by vote of a majority of these members who are not present and voting in a meeting duly called upon notice for a specific purpose of changing the articles. The name and address of each incorporator are, and it kind of goes through all that. Then it's the little thing. So basically, in a nutshell, that's what we have to follow. And we're starting at the beginning. And so long as we follow that, we're good. Now, let's go back a little bit. So we're going to follow those. Right now, those 3 individuals are starting to write some bylaws and some changes and effects. When they change anything that's on that document that we just looked at, they have to file that with the Secretary of State. It's got to be on file, and it's got to be able to be accessible in a public fashion, whether I call up there and request it or whatever the case. So you'll notice here that when you click on our annual reports, and apparently when we incorporated in 79, nobody got the notice that we're supposed to file on a yearly basis. So it goes from 79 to 84. The 6 months notice was basically, hey, 6 months we're gonna turn off your corporation. You're not gonna be a business anymore because you're not giving us what we need. So you'll see that's when they sent the notice. In 84, they also submitted an annual report. The annual report consisted of basically updating them with the information. But what you'll notice, okay, maybe this one doesn't have it, is the names of our board of directors. So when you click on 87, it should have. 87, okay, let's go to 90. May Birch, Denzel Gray, May Birch. I guess they're not reporting those until, okay, yeah, here's 91. Freddie Roan, Jimmy Harold, May Birch, Denzel Gray, those are the board members. What you'll also notice is those board members are members from the department. It's relevant, that's our history, that's who we are. As you go through there, long story short, you're going to find, I think the same one, 92, Denzel Gray, Jimmy Harold. I'm going to kind of skip on, if you don't mind. You can go through all these if you so choose. I'm going to skip on to 98. 98, what you're going to notice is Alan Birch, Jimmy Birch, May Birch, Ronnie Pearson's name starts showing up. About that time, I think Ronnie took over as emergency management director 95, 96, maybe a little later than that, 98, so around, about this time frame. Maybe plus or minus a couple years, I don't know. There has around this time frame also, Warren County Rescue didn't have the best name out there, and they wasn't well associated with, I'm going to use the terminology, the appropriate staffing. Take of that what you will. What I do know is in 1999, some of the records that I keep here at the office are things that I look at from time to time that allow me to reflect on where we've been and where we're at and where we need to go. And one of the documents that I've always kept, there used to be a filing cabinet, and Deborah might remember. She'd be the only one that would. When we first started about that time frame, 2000-ish, 2001, 2002, there was a filing cabinet in the a meeting room, and it had, I mean, just a bunch of old stuff in there. That's the catch-all of everything. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. So I took the week to go through that filing cabinet, and it was all junk, with the exception of one document, and that is all we had. Everything else, as far as documenting, we had nothing. Started with nothing. I'll show you pictures of the year that I took office. As far as the department chief, we didn't even have a computer in the building. This office was completely empty. We started from literally zero. No board minutes, no department members' applications, their training logs, nothing. So the only thing that I had an opportunity to start my chief's position was with this only letter that I kept that the judge sent to our board of directors in 1999. And basically, it's this letter right here. I had an opportunity to reflect. I'm going to leave that up on the screen for a minute. And by the way, this is just going out. This link is a private link that I'm going to send out just to our board of directors. This is not going to the general staff. I had an opportunity to reflect with the judge the last time he was here. And I said, you know, just something I wanted to kind of share with you. And I showed him that this letter that he wrote, our board chairperson at the time was Chris Allen. Chris Allen was the first board chairman, where he was the first individual to hold the chairperson's position that was not directly a member of Warren County Rescue. I'm going to explain why that's relevant in a minute. But you can see by this letter here that we wasn't handling our business like we should have. In fact, several years later, we had hosted a Christmas dinner and invited the local magistrates and the judge, and he actually spoke to the effect and how remarkable it was in what 5 or 6 years that we had been here, that we have changed things around, going in the right direction. It's different from daylight and dark, and that was probably 7, 8 years ago today. In 1999, the judge was ready to say, we don't want you associated with Warren County anymore. Warren County government, Warren County anything. Now, keep this in mind. He's not saying that we can't be a business. He doesn't have that opportunity, because for us to be a business, we file that with the state. He can say that he does not want us to represent Warren County in any way, shape, or form. He has that right. So, with that being said, you can see just by the letter here that either you was going to change or they were going to look at taking some sort of other action, and kind of going from there. But this was the letter that motivated me. One of the things, besides the fact of coming into an agency that at the time was acting to a certain degree kind of how we are now with the them versus us type of thing. But then it was just all them. The them versus us was the Warren County Rescue Squad, and I use the word squad because that, to me, in my mind, articulates the old regime. Them versus us was Warren County Rescue Squad and other Warren County agencies. It wasn't a board of directors, them versus us, because their board of directors only comprised of themselves. So the department chief was also the board chairman. The secretary of the squad was also the secretary of the board of directors. And even to this day, if you pull up the articles of incorporation for a majority of the rescue squads around the Commonwealth, that principle is still true. Now, I'm a firm believer in transparency, and I'll be to say I think it's a great thing that we have an interrelationship of other people that sit on our board of directors, and we will continue to do so. We're not going to be changing that. I don't bring this up to, there's not any ulterior motives here or anything like that. I bring this up to say we just need to kind of get some things cleaned up. So if you've had an opportunity to read that, just shoot me an email if you want me to just email this to you. It's not a problem. This is what I consider part of I've got a file that's Warren County agency documents that you guys do have access to here. You just might not know that you do. And we'll get to that in another opportunity. So with that being said, that was a big motivator for me and us to kind of make things right. You also notice that was in '98. It was just board members from the community, or from the department. I'm sorry. In 1999, the year that letter was wrote, you're going to notice that Alan Birch was the president, Jimmy Harold, vice president, May Birch secretary. These three individuals were still members from the department. But you're also going to notice Bob Myatt, his first year was 1999. Chris Allen, Tim Myers. Those were members from the community. So those are the three members from the community that, Bob, Chris, and Tim. Yeah. So it was basically 3 and 3. So it was still 6. We had 3 members that represented the department. We had 3 members that represented the community. But because the judge said, to fix that, and this was I recall talking to Chris Allen many years ago, when he was coming out, because if you remember, May was still on the board. We still had some issues. There was really, at that time, was where friction started. And I can remember sitting down with Christy Quinn, Deborah Williams, Chris Allen, myself at the restaurant that used to be right next to Kroger's on the bypass there. It's no longer there. It used to be way back in the day. Probably most of you guys remember, it used to be a drive-in movie theater. Yeah, I remember that. And right next to that, I think it was an old Catfish place or something. We sat in there for hours and hours and hours and hours. And then days and weeks trying to get our bylaws and reflect all that stuff on how we can work things out and some of the problems with this particular regime. And it took about a year to get through that, maybe a little bit longer. And most of those conversations, they used to record them, and I thought was a great thing. These are the first couple meetings that we had. It's interesting if you guys want to know about history, which I particularly am fond of. But anyway, that was the first year. So moving on. What we failed to do, maybe we didn't know, or we was kind of young, whatever the case, we didn't do any amendments. We didn't kind of keep up from a business perspective of where we should have been, because it was always easy for us to, okay, if we're all in agreements, we're good, and we just keep going. But sometimes we don't take the corrective actions from a documentary perspective, or make the necessary reports to the appropriate people for us to be in good statutes, if you will. And that's important to me, and it is. I know it's important to our board of directors, and it's important to everybody. The chances of us getting in an audit in the next 4 years, realistically 50-50 with that House Bill 1 stuff. But this and that, the only way that I'm putting them together is they're going to do an audit. Well, let's review us in our entirety from start to finish and see what we're lacking in. So that was the trigger for me. The trigger for me was audit up. Let's look at everything, make sure we're good, which brings this up. No ulterior motives. I'm not trying to get anybody kicked off, not trying to change anything. I'm just trying to make it right. So, 2000 and, where was it? All right, the First Amendment, as you go up through here, other than the administrative delusions or things like that, because we didn't file, we forgot, whatever the case, was in 2010. It was listed our First Amendment to our Articles of Incorporation. That's when we hired Cliff Long and the CPAs, and we had to add to our Articles of Incorporation some statements. And you'll see basically we wanted to get our 501c3 status. So we had to also add this particular statement, which I'm not going to read that to you. It's on the website. Feel free to look at that. It states what we will and cannot do to be recognized as a nonprofit corporate agency. And that's basically what this amendment was. So that was in 2010. The last amendment, you'll see in 2000, and that was in 2010. Well, it wasn't really an amendment. It was a certificate of assumed name. That was in 2013. We have started to put a lot of Warren County Rescue, the name in our documents, I've noticed. So if we was going to use Warren County Rescue, that name, in our bylaws or department standard operating guidelines, it was important for me that we at least secure that name and be recognized within those documents within a corporate level, Secretary of State, whatever it needed to be done. If we're going to use the name, we need to go ahead and register it. And that's what I did in 2013, about 2 years ago. So basically what it says, Warren County Rescue Department, we want to use this name, our actual name, yada, 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 and that's basically it. So we've got this name for 5 years. And now I feel better using Warren County Rescue, just the name, in these official documents. That's all that was. Other than that, that's pretty much it. Now, what's this mean for us? So you noticed when I actually read the Articles of Incorporation, there was a general statement. First paragraph said, we're going to be a business, we're going to operate under KRS Chapter 273. Now, what I have instructed the staff that was going through our bylaws to do is we start there. That's where we need to start. If we're going to be a business, we need to look at those laws. We need to apply those laws within our bylaws and make sure that those things are in line with each other and we're not missing something. So I'm going to move over to Chapter 239 and I'm going to stop this particular video. So in a nutshell, that's it. And I'm going to pick up part 2 and kind of go over and brief some other things, and then we'll just kind of go from there. So you can go to KRS 273, just go to Google site, something like this comes up. These are the rules, regulations, and things that says we're a business. It is not our what you guys would believe to be, if we don't sign our affiliation agreement, we got to close our doors. It frustrates me when I hear things like that, because that tells me that you guys are not educated to the point that you need to be. So we've been operating officially as a business since 1974. Those laws that you're talking about were enacted in 1999. So what happened from 1979? Oh, wait. 1979 is when we had Articles of Incorporation. From 1979 to 1998, when they enacted you have to have an affiliation agreement to do what we do now. Nothing. Basically, it was an agreement. That is the document that associates us and affiliates us with local government. So we can still be a business. We can still operate. We can still continue to do what we do under this right here as a business. Now, where the affiliation agreement comes in, that's our link, that's our mutual aid agreement. That's what we want to be in agreements with all three parties. Just because we don't have that or we didn't sign it doesn't mean, as you guys have been articulating, we have to close our doors. No, that's not the case. We're signing it. That's not. I just want to steer you in the right direction. That's all I'm wanting to do. Doesn't change anything on that level, because we still want to be in compliant with all the laws. We can still do search and rescue. They got private agencies out there that do search and rescue that do not have an affiliation agreement with local government, but the local government still calls them every day. What does that not do for us? Well, it doesn't give us insurance. So the Kentucky Department of Emergency Management, on the state level, that's how our workers' comp is paid. And the only way that they'll pay that is if we have an affiliation agreement in place. So we would have to go out and find workers' comp as a corporation for our volunteers and our staff and so forth. What it also doesn't do, if we do not have an Articles of Incorporation, the building that we're in belongs to Warren County government. They can still allow us to operate out of this building if they so choose, and they might not be as inclined to do that without having this agreement in place, and they might. I don't know. They also might not be inclined to give us how they list grant money. So when we get that $4,500 every year, it's listed as a grant. They grant that to us. We are not funded by Warren County Physical Court. Other than we apply for a grant, that means I actually write some paperwork requesting $4,500, and they approve it and they give it to us, and that's it. If they paid for basically everything we're paying for now, and we also were recognized by ordinance, established ordinance. If they created an ordinance that says we recognize Warren County Rescue as being an official government agency affiliated with Warren County Rescue, blah, 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 then it doesn't matter. We don't even have to have an affiliation agreement. Now, we should. It's just the right thing to do. But that was one of the things that was on my mind, moving forward. If we want to be here forever and really make an impact, why don't we do it? Why don't we do it right? Why don't we allow Warren County Physical Court to recognize us as being a part of local government? And maybe let's allow our bylaws to reflect that. What I mean by that is let them have a chair at the table. Assign a chair at our board of directors where they can put a magistrate on our board of directors. Maybe that'll fulfill our communications gap between Warren County Rescue's Board of Directors, Warren County Rescue Department, and Warren County Physical Court. We actually have a magistrate that sits on our Board of Directors, and we can say, hey, we need to work on this. Where can we get this or fit it in our plan as far as Warren County's government plan? And maybe we can even put it in there that we would like to recommend the magistrate to the judge executive, which one it is, because sometimes people's personalities has been very relevant in the last week or so. Might be rubbing each other wrong, and it might not be the best idea to have a Dan Roloff and a Deborah Williams, or I'm just picking some names. Just so by adding that in there, if they would allow that, we would like to recommend to Warren County Physical Court a magistrate's name to sit on our board of directors for their tenure, their 4 years or whatever it is. I thought about that and how that could help us. I don't see how it could hurt us. I'm very transparent. We're going to talk about funding in another deal, but I'm going to briefly go through this and then I'm going to be done with this. So these are laws that I instructed my staff to go through line by line. And this is one document, and I'm going to be realistic, of probably 20 documents that we need to be looking at to include the right verbiage and the right policies and procedures within our bylaws. There are a lot of them in other documents that do not affect our bylaws. They are two different documents. So the county's emergency operation plan, typically a lot of that content would not affect our bylaws, but it does have a tremendous amount of effect on our standard operating guidelines. But they come up with a reference list, if you will, of all these documents that we have some tie to. This being the first one, the document that says we're a business. And it's interesting, it's what's in here. I don't know if you guys have ever had the opportunity to look this up, but there's a lot of stuff in here that we've not been doing that we need to be doing. So the non-stock nonprofit, it tells you your purpose, your general powers. That's kind of a little stuff there. You might want to check that out. Powers of the Secretary of State. I'm not going to click on all these. I'm just going to kind of run through them. You can see some of them over the years have been repealed. Statement of change of principal office talks about members. What is a member? What do our members have rights to as being a member? Our bylaw. There's a section on bylaws in here. Did you guys know that? Oh, that's kind of handy. But it tells us what we can do with our bylaws, what type of policies we can set by bylaws, and we can change on a whenever we feel like changes, so long as we meet the criteria of the change as far as 14 days and things like that. But it also can say what things have to be changed at the state level, the articles of incorporation, that type of thing. Meeting of the members. These type of things, and voting, quorum, board of directors. There's a lot of good information here. General standards, quorum of directors, conflict of interest, officers, authority of officers, removal of officers, books and records. That's been a big one on my end, and I think there's been some miscommunications there. I've been asking for department meeting minutes for quite some time, and Rebecca she was able to produce a book and this is probably for 2 years or so. Well, it's important for me that this book and the content, it don't have to be in my office. It's preferred that it's not in my office. What I did do is that the electrical room has one of the things that's on my agenda, and we cleared that out for a reason. That's a secured area that we've moved our filing cabinets. That's going to be our records and archives room, the front section. So there's two really nice filing cabinets in there, keys if the secretary so chooses to lock that stuff up, but that room is a secured room. And that's where we're going to keep all of our paper documents. You'll notice in the office I don't have filing cabinets. I don't need them in here because I don't reference that material that much. I really like to transition that into a digital form where I can just search that. And the reason why I say that it's important for us to have for us is, well, one, it's by law. They have to be here because this is the registered agent facility, Deborah Williams being the registered agent. And by law, we have to have a copy of our meeting, our official meeting minutes, because that is what certifies everything. You can't produce a bylaw. You can't throw a bylaw on the table and say, these are the bylaws that we're going by, or these are the SOGs that we're going by. You have to attach a copy of the meeting minutes where they were approved to that set of bylaws. What you're going to notice is I've got a set of bylaws from 1991 that would probably be the closest ones officially that I would have in this department's possession that is actually filed right. A page signed by the board of directors as being approved as the bylaws. It's like the second page. I'd show it to you, but it won't show up. My camera will go down. So I'll be more than happy to provide those to you. Now that's all I've got. That's from 91. Obviously, there's been a lot of changes. But the other thing, too, is I started with nothing. And there's so much information that I wanted to know about and how we used to do things and how we used to do business and what the topics of discussion was. And if I wasn't a member for 2 years prior to being elected as department chief, I wouldn't have any idea of what was going on or whatever the case and whatever. But this is our history, too. These documents, these things are going to be those documents that Kaylee gets to look at in 15, 20 years when I'm still here and I'm, step back a little bit. I might just be an assistant chief and we let some of these young bucks kind of do it. And I just get to be like John Weatherby and more of a sit back and I give you my 2 cents from where I've been at type of thing. But it is important that we leave something behind. And we can't do that if we don't have rules and regulations to follow. And it seems like that we're not doing that. So in order for us to get it right, in order for me to achieve my goal this year and being the most professional that we've ever been, this is where we're starting. This is what I have tasked my staff members to do to help the board of directors not have to do all the legwork. It was also my intent to share with Deborah, and I have shared with Deborah as well as Rick and some others about this. I do feel that as soon as I brought up articles of incorporation, it was a direct, there's something devious going on in my head. There's something that I want to change. There's something that you're not telling me, or there's some ulterior motives. I have an ulterior motive, and this is what it is. My ulterior motive is to be more professional than we've ever been. That means we need to start following the rules. I need to start following the rules. We need to do not only what's expected of us, but the right thing to do. And I'm going to give you, for instance, I'm not picking on anybody or anything, but there's a lot of things in here that need to be looked at that you guys as a board of directors need to be aware of. And I've tried to share this material for several years now. I mean, I'm going to just kind of go through the list here a little bit. All that's a lot. It even talks about surplus. That's a business. Now let's be clear. I didn't know all this, yesterday, day before, whatever the case. It's always been easy for us to, if it's not an issue, to not address it. If it's not a squeaky wheel, it don't need any grease. And that is something that I've recognized over the 10 years of being a member of Warren County Rescue and other agents, other agencies, and other governing bodies and other departments. It's just easier for us not to mess with something that might have a direct impact on the way somebody can perceive you or think about certain things. Now, make no mistake, it's not easy for me to bring up topics of discussion that I know somebody's going to think in the back of their mind I might have an ulterior motive because the type of content that I'm bringing up. But there's nothing difference. There is no difference of me bringing up what my chief's report is in terms of our projects and me bringing up we need to change our board of directors to reflect this, even though I know that people are going to think that he's trying to do something. The interesting thing is, I've thought about it in my head, if somebody like a general staff member was to bring this up, that didn't have the amount of influence that I could have in the position that I hold, maybe they might look at that different. And there's been a lot of topics over the years that it's just been easier for me not to bring up to avoid conflict or even differences of opinion. There's been a lot of things along the years, and unfortunately, that's not the right thing to do. For me, the right thing to do, what I should have done, what I know now is address these issues and try to do it in a diplomatic approach as much as possible. But that's still not easy with some of our, whether it be my personality or our personality. And really, it's not about my personality. It's not about your personality. It's about, here it is. That's what we're supposed to do, regardless of what I think about it. Just like you told me, we have to have an affiliation agreement or we have to close the doors. We don't have that option. Well, it's just my job to educate you at this point. I'm not asking for change. Don't do anything. Continue to do business the way we're doing business. Not doing the right thing, but this is me educating you. And if there's anything I can do to assist you, that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm committed to, being the most professional than we've ever been. That's it. So I'm going to end on that. Thank you for your time.